Like, I want you to outgrow us. I want you to have more listens and more clients and more impact and more profitability and more mastery than us. That's what I want for you. But if you asked me 5 years ago, I probably would have a lot of limiting beliefs about what you could accomplish.
If you want to be a speaker and you've never spoken before, don't set a goal to sell out a stadium. That's going to hurt your self-esteem. But a 1-minute video in front of your camera phone, like that might build self-esteem. Oh my God, I did that. I made that promise to myself and I posted it. Good for me.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, Next Level University weekly Meetup Monday for week number 62. The top 5 lessons from 600 episodes of Next Level University as Alan pours water down his face. So we're actually at 639 episodes, or actually, I think it was 638 dropped today. So we're doing this a little bit later, but we've kind of done this every 100, 150 or so, and we have the pleasure of learning so much from amazing people. And we understand that not everybody has 100 hours to go back and listen to all of our episodes, although if you do, you find yourself having a couple 100 extra hours, it might benefit you to do it. But we want to take you guys through the top 5 things that we have learned, and we want to share them with you.
Okay, so the very first one is everybody's comfort zone is different. And also keep in mind, not only are we preparing for these interviews and these podcasts, but then we're actually doing them, but then we're also reviewing them. So Kevin and I both listen to every episode now. And so the reflection is where a lot of the awareness comes. And if you've been a long-term listener of this show, you know that Kevin and I will revisit certain topics. And the reason why we do that is because now we have a higher awareness of that same topic. One example might be the drive to 5. One might be filters and magnets, the law of attraction. So that's what this is going to be about. What have we learned from 600 episodes? Many of these things are going to be tried and true fundamentals that you may have heard before, but maybe there's a way we can articulate them a little bit or maybe bring them back to the forefront of your mind. So what I don't want you to do on this is say, I already know that. What I want you to say is, am I doing that? Have I mastered that? Would my results prove that I've mastered that? I think we need to be reminded more than we need to be taught sometimes. You know, obviously exercise and nutrition is what's going to get us fit, but we don't always do it. And that's actually going to be one of the things. So everybody's comfort zone is different is the first principle. What I wanted to talk about was basically this. So you're going to communicate a little bit differently with a 5-year-old than you are a 10-year-old, than you are a 17-year-old, than you are a 30-year-old.
How old are you?
32. It's a quick test.
Strong work.
I remember I had the pleasure of coaching. So Kevin and I gave a speech to a group of children. They were ages 7 to, I believe, 13, and we gave a free gift at the end of our speeches. We always give a free coaching call, and we ended up giving a free coaching call, and I ended up coaching a 7-year-old and her older brother who was 11, and I remember that was one of the most challenging things I'd ever done because it's like, oh, wow, I need to go back into my consciousness and try to understand what their comfort zone looks like. What is it that I can say that they're going to understand, and how do I get them to the next level? I'm on chapter 32 of this life. The boy was at chapter 11. The little girl was at chapter 7. And so I have to try to relate and go to where they are, then try to bring them to that next level. And so the principle here is basically everyone can only, you have to communicate with everyone where they are, and you have to make sure that you're not bringing them outside their comfort zone more than they can handle. So, for example, if you play football for the very first time and then you played in the NFL, you might get so injured, you might go to the hospital because those people have been playing and conditioned for years, sometimes decades, to get to that level. Whereas if you play in Pop Warner as a little kid, you'll probably be fine. So there's levels to every game, and the key is to understand that everyone has a different comfort zone, and that's true for you as well.
So Alan said that everybody has a different comfort zone, but how far outside of your comfort zone should you actually be? If you've listened to us, you've heard us talk about the comfort zone, the learning zone, and the anxiety zone. We had Stephen Kotler on 2 weeks ago, and he talked about the challenge skills sweet spot. So according to the research, according to the neuroscience, there's an actual number that you should be outside of your comfort zone where you're more likely to hit flow and for optimal growth. So that's 4%. Okay, so 4% outside of your comfort zone. So say you are somewhat new to the gym and you're lifting 100 pounds. If you really want to get out of your comfort zone, but in a safe way and hit flow and hit optimal performance, you should add 4% to that. So 4% of 100 is 4. I believe. So you would do 104 pounds. Now, I think it's beautiful because a lot of people, us involved, we always talk about get outside of your comfort zone, get outside of your comfort zone. But if you get too far outside of your comfort zone, you're going to end up in anxiety and you're going to have a negative association, right? So this is week number 62 of this. When Alan and I did this the first time, I was in the anxiety zone. I've looked back and realized that for much of this journey, it's been way more than 4% for me, but you have to figure out what 4% is for you. So if you reach out to me and say you want to be a speaker, I'm going to tell you to get on your Instagram story. Because for most people, that's probably more than 4%, honestly. But maybe a good first step would be, okay, write a speech and perform it in the mirror. Write a speech and perform it to your phone and don't show anybody. That might be a 4% out of your comfort zone. For a podcaster, start with one episode. That's already outside of your comfort zone. Maybe you don't do YouTube. Maybe you just do a podcast, right? But a lot of people say, get outside your comfort zone. We're talking about how far to get.
And the last thing I'll say about that, too, is remember that the feedback you get is going to be predicated on other people's expectations of you. Obviously, the world expected more of Michael Jordan than of a bench player. So he can drop 40 points in a game, and that would be expected, versus someone who was a bench player. If they ever did that, the whole world would kind of go nuts. And so, for example, if you are starting a podcast or doing your very first speech, just understand that some people might say, that was a great job, that's awesome. And that's great because you're outside your comfort zone. Whereas at the very beginning, if someone had said, like, honestly, that wasn't very good, you might not speak again. So just remember that your comfort zone not only dictates what you should and shouldn't do at different levels, right? You're not going to probably speak in a stadium for the very first speech you ever do. That might be in your anxiety zone. But also understand that the feedback that you get is going to be very predicated on what the audience is expecting of you.
Can I add something really quick?
Yeah, please.
So Alan and I talk about anxiety, and looking back, I have a lot of aha moments because learning this number, it makes a lot of sense. So when Alan and I went to Arizona to the first Brendan Burchard event, the week or two leading up to that, I think I had 3 anxiety attacks. Never had them before in my life, didn't know what they were. I literally thought I was dying. We got down to Florida. I think I had another anxiety attack. And I remember laying in bed. I remember laying in the bathroom, on the bathroom floor, actually saying, like, well, I think this is going to be it for me because I've never really experienced this. I don't know what to do. Alan went to CVS. He got me Vicks Vapor Rub, and I think I got a Pulse Ox and all this other stuff. I called my mom, and I was like, I don't know what to do. But that was way too far outside of my comfort zone, right? We went to Florida for 2 days. I met a bunch of people I didn't know. We flew back to Boston. Then we flew to Arizona for a week. I hadn't been on a plane since I was like 8. I was terrified of networking events. I didn't know what to expect. So it was way out of my comfort zone, way into anxiety. I think the only way to find the 4% sometimes is to go past it. So just be cognizant of that and really weigh how you feel and how you feel after the experience, because you can't always tell in the moment.
For sure. That's a really powerful distinction. Number 2, self-belief and self-worth are absolutely everything. So again, what have we learned from 600 episodes, interviews, talking to each other? Self-worth and self-belief are absolutely everything. So again, going back to the Steven Kotler interview, he talks about how all of us have a certain set point of happiness from a neurobiological standpoint. So there's oxytocin, neuroepinephrine, dopamine, there's a couple others. And basically all of us have somewhat of a biochemical happiness set point. But he said you can change it over time. If you get more and more happy on the day-to-day, you can actually eventually move your set point, your thermostat, quote-unquote. But within the day-to-day, and hopefully this is making sense, it's going to fluctuate within that 10%, plus or minus 10% of the set point. So think of someone who's almost always happy. That person probably has a high happiness set point. Now think of someone who tends to be very depressed and down. I've been there too, I understand. But most likely you have a low happiness set point. What Steven Kotler was saying in terms of the evolution of neurobiology is that you can actually move that over time. But within the day-to-day, you're most likely, like a bad day, only going to be plus or minus 10%. So why am I talking about that? Okay, again, self-belief and self-worth are everything. This is what I've figured out. Self-worth is built day-to-day through self-esteem. So how do you build self-esteem, though? So self-worth is kind of like the building that you're building, okay, in this analogy. Self-esteem is little bricks that you're laying each day. I think self-esteem is built by keeping the promises you make to yourself. I often say that quote, many, many times. One of my favorites. If you had a friend who broke as many promises to you as you have broken to yourself, how much would you value that friendship? So this whole idea of self-worth, self-value, self-love comes down to self-esteem. I think self-esteem is sort of the day-to-day fluctuations, sometimes high, sometimes low. I think self-worth is those little investments of self-esteem over time, growing that set point. Self-belief as well. So I'll go into the same deal. Remember, the building is self-belief. The bricks are self-confidence. I think you build confidence by setting little goals and hitting them over time. And then eventually you start to really believe in yourself. And so from 0 to 10, how much do you believe in yourself? From 0 to 10, how much do you value yourself? Do you treat yourself like the $2 million mansion? Or do you treat yourself like the $200,000 home with the rotting basement? Again, it's just an analogy, but the key here is how much are you building your self-esteem every single day by keeping small promises? And this goes back to the comfort zone. If you want to be a speaker and you've never spoken before, don't set a goal to sell out a stadium. That's going to hurt your self-esteem. But a 1-minute video in front of your camera phone, like that might build self-esteem. Oh my God, I did that. I made that promise to myself and I posted it. Good for me, right? So understand who you are and where you are and try to build self-esteem and self-worth over time. And then self-confidence and self-belief can be built over time. And Kevin's going to talk to you about that a little bit.
One of the reasons I love talking about confidence and self-belief is because I'm an example of not having it and then developing it over time. Again, when I started this, I didn't want to be a speaker. I didn't think that was going to be a thing. I never foresaw us getting to 600 and some odd episodes, interviewing the people we have, having the clients. Like all of this is, I feel like I'm playing with house money quite often, but I have something that I created that Alan then stole and then made better, but we're going to go with my thing today, the confidence conundrum. So at the end of the day, if there's any uncertainty, it's far harder to take action, but we all have uncertainty before we do something. Okay, so before this, Alan and I were uncertain. Our Wi-Fi is jeffing. I don't have a ton of belief that we're going to make it through this without this thing crashing and burning, but we're going to find out.
And this little thing keeps...
Oh, it's the worst.
Yeah,
do you want to put the other thing up? Oh, you can't because
that would still happen.
So at the beginning of anything, you have uncertainty. For most people, uncertainty creates lack of action. Lack of action then creates no feedback, and the no feedback creates a negative result. It creates proof that you're not capable of doing what you want. But what if somebody comes along and instills a little bit of belief in you? You still have uncertainty, okay? So Amy at the mall. This is the best analogy. I know I've used it a million times, but it's one of the best ever. Amy at the mall, uncertain of going to the mall and talking to people. I was too. Both of us were for sure. I instilled belief in Amy, so Amy took action. That action resulted in feedback that she didn't expect to get, and then that feedback proved that, well, this isn't as bad as I thought. Same with the 1-minute video on your Instagram story. You're uncertain of how it's going to go, so you don't take any action. And if you don't take action, you don't get feedback. And when you don't have feedback and results, you prove to yourself that, yeah, I'm not really good enough to do it. At the end of the day, if you want to build belief, take messy action. Messy action. And almost expect to jeff it a little bit. Because in the beginning, you're not going to be very good. That's okay. Just don't allow that to get into your identity and become the person that you think you are. Alan wasn't good at speaking at the beginning. I wasn't good at speaking in the beginning. Your favorite author wasn't great at writing. Your favorite actor probably wasn't great at acting. Your favorite musician didn't know how to play instruments yet. At the end of the day, belief is built by almost all people, but I do think at some stage people might lose sight of that. They might forget that they didn't believe in the very beginning.
For sure. And that's actually going to be one of our points as well. So again, if you're out there, write this down if you can. If you're driving, don't. Number 1, everybody's comfort zone is different. We already went through that. Number 2, self-belief and self-worth are everything. Again, tried and true fundamentals. Super important. Self-belief and self-worth are everything. If you do not have self-worth and self-belief, you most likely will not accomplish that much because you just don't believe in yourself enough. You don't value yourself enough to do the hard work. Okay? 3rd, write this down. Everyone has insecurities, especially those who you think don't. And I'm going to explain this. I'm going to try to explain this to the best of my ability. So I had a client early on who actually wanted me to go with her to therapy. I was very proud of her. And we ended up interviewing her therapist, which was wonderful. Her name was Carol Gillen. She came on the show. Again, what did we learn from 600 episodes? She ended up teaching us something called IFS. I think it's Emotive Family Systems. I think. I might be messing that up. But the point here is that basically we all have these things called protectors and we have exiles. And the way she described it was basically we have these different parts of ourselves, okay? And she literally said, I have a part of me right now that wants a Big Mac and fries. And I was like, me too. And she's like, I have another part of me that really wants to be present here with you guys. I have another part of me that's thinking of this other thing. So we have these different parts of ourselves. And she described them in these different categories. One of them is an exile. One of them is a protector. An exile she described like a beach ball. It's like something that you're super, super insecure about, that you probably have fear and some form of emotional trauma around, and you basically hold this beach ball underwater, and you don't want anyone to ever see it. You don't want anyone to know. You don't want to be found out. Okay, this is the skeleton in the closet type of thing. And most of this is subconscious, so I don't want anyone beating themselves up. Okay, so this can be a sexual trauma when you were younger that you never told anyone about. This could be something bad that happened to you or something that you did that was bad that you never talk about. But this exile gets held underwater, and she described it like a beach ball. You spend a lot of energy trying to hold a beach ball underwater. It's really hard to do, and eventually it's going to get out and it's going to splash everybody. So what she says is what you want to do is you want to invite that beach ball up and get to know it, build a relationship with it. Okay, what happened? How did that go? Okay, what she said is there's another part of us that's called a protector. This is called a facade. This is called a front. Rappers say you be frontin'.
I've heard
like
it. I've heard it.
Yeah.
I've heard it.
This is the ego. This is the stay away from this. Okay, so all of us, we have family, friends. Awesome. When we're interacting with people, you can always tell when you poke a button. You pushed a button. It's like, oh, okay, whoa. I won't go there. We all have these. We all have these insecurities, and we have these protectors that come up that say no. Okay, early on I had a little temper if you would talk about something I was insecure about. Okay, that was mine. Some people are a turtle shell, and they shell up, and they hide, and they suppress. Whatever your reaction is, whatever your protector is, everyone has insecurities. Between Kevin and I, we're over 1,000 coaching calls. Between Kevin and I, we're over hundreds of interviews. We have dozens of clients, if not more than that at this point, over the long term. And so we've studied humans long enough to know whether it's someone who's unbelievably successful, making millions of dollars like some of our mentors, or someone who's brand new early to this journey, they all have protectors, all of them, that will come up when we talk about something they're insecure about. One of the best ways to describe this is, and I'm just going to say this, some people who are super, super successful are also super out of shape. And Kevin and I, obviously, we work on fitness pretty consistently. Not so much lately, as much as we used to.
Why don't you watch your mouth?
Not as much as we used to. But what happens is that we trigger that insecurity. So let's say, hypothetically, you are super, super successful in your business, but you've been letting your fitness really slide. When Kevin and I come and interview you, it's going to be a little bit of a mirror if we've been really killing it in fitness. And so that triggers a protector. And so why am I saying all this? Everyone has insecurities, especially those who you think don't. We actually had one that we didn't write, or didn't end up saying, which is basically no one is good at everything.
Ladies and gentlemen, one of the biggest issues for our listeners that we've seen is not everybody has people in their corner trying to lift them to the next level, and even the people who are trying to help don't always know how.
That's why Kevin and I created Next Level Group Coaching. It's a 3-month program on teams of 10 with all people committed to achieving their goals. Click the link in the show notes for more information.
And we only take 10 people at a time, so make sure you get in quick.
Health, wealth, and love. Kevin and I are constantly searching who is unbelievably healthy, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Who is unbelievably wealthy, abundance, and who has an unbelievable intimate relationship. Great relationships with their friends, family, clients, colleagues. Very few people actually have all of that. And I know why. It's very difficult to master all those things. Kevin and I work every single day trying to help other people and mastering ourselves these health, wealth, and love. It's very difficult to be good in all three. As a matter of fact, everyone out there right now, think about the one you've mastered most. Health, wealth, or love. Okay? I guarantee you that if that's your level 10, let's say it's health. I know some people that are unbelievably into fitness, and they're dialed in, and they're lean, and they look great on the beach. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you a quick story. I was in the gym with one of my main mentors, super successful CEO, and he said, Alan, I feel great at the bank. You feel great on the beach. And I remember thinking to myself, like, that's interesting. Okay, what have we been doing for the last several years? I've been focusing on fitness. I was a fitness coach, fitness competitor. You know, I was doing fitness every single day. I had done 40 or so modeling shoots. I was modeling. Of course, I'm going to look and feel better at the beach than someone who's been focused on business, because what you focus on grows. So when you see that Instagram-worthy photo, when you see that person who's a model or a professional athlete or whoever, and you think they have it all, I promise you they don't. They don't. Kevin and I don't either. We are not perfect at everything. We're trying to be better at health, wealth, and love, but we have not mastered it. It's an infinite game. So those people that we've interviewed a lot of people. Some of them are unbelievably good at business, but not so much in fitness. Some of them are great at fitness, but their business is struggle bus, right? The point is don't fall for it. Don't fall for the facade. Don't look at someone's best book and assume they're a best-selling author when they have a bunch of other books that aren't very good. Again, weird analogy, but just don't let other people fake you out when it comes to this.
Most people do not have the opportunities to see the person behind the profile picture. That was a tough one. I thought I was going to jeff that pretty hard. So as you know, Alan and I love talking to the members of the NLU family, and we are blessed to have amazing listeners, and many of our listeners are actually women. So I have been on the phone with genuine models. I've been on the phone with moms. I've been on the phone with former cheerleaders. I've been on the phone with fitness models and competitors. At the end of the day, like Alan said, you have no idea what somebody's truth is. Okay, I have somebody in mind that when I saw this person's profile, I felt guilty of that, saying, oh, she's got everything. She must be super, super happy and super confident. She's got the pictures on the beach, and she has the pictures on the bar, and she has the pictures on vacation, and she has the pictures at her house and the pool. And her and I started talking because I said, hey, what are you going through in your life that I might be able to help with? And she went into how she's insecure about where she's at. She's insecure that she doesn't have a lot of growth-minded friends in her life. And she's insecure about the level of success in her life. And this is somebody who genuinely looks like they have it all. You would think they have it all, but the reason is because they designed their profile that way.
Yep.
Most people are, okay? I've said this before. Very rarely do you find a post of somebody crying into their pillow. It just doesn't happen that often because most people don't want to highlight that. Because that right there is a vulnerability and insecurity showing weakness. So I second everything Alan said. Understand that this right now, what you're looking at is the studio wall. The rest of the studio doesn't look this good, right? Like if you were to come in here, we might get insecure if you see the mess behind the camera.
Actually looking pretty good
now. We did clean it up.
Yeah.
We spent several hours cleaning it up. But
a few weeks ago, though, for sure.
Yeah. But understand that everybody is showing a side of themselves that they want you to see. And it's super important to understand that. If you're playing the comparison game with somebody on social media, understand you don't know your truth or their truth. You only know yours. You only know your truths, your fears, your insecurities. You have no idea what theirs is. And if you live your life that way, you're going to assume that you're way worse than you actually are.
Always keep this anonymous, I will. But there are people who you would look at their social media followings and their pictures and their websites and all that stuff, and you would think they were unreasonably wealthy. You would think they are crushing it, just making tons of money. And in some cases, they are not.
Skrilla.
And then there's other people who you wouldn't know at all are like doing really well financially, and they're doing extremely, extremely well. And so I think that at the end of the day, you just kind of have to look at work ethic, look at virtue, look at behind the scenes. Our goal from the very beginning of the Hyperconscious podcast, even early in the 100s, 200s, 300s, was to pull back the curtain on what it really takes to be more successful. And that's why we tell you all of this. Like, it's so important to understand that people are not as successful as you think they are. They're just not. There's filters and there's photos. I mean, if you take 100 photos, you're going to pick the best one. We all do it. It is what it is, right? So I've done 40 photo shoots, and every photo shoot I've done had at least 50 photos, and then you find the best of the 20, and then you edit them. Now, I'm not editing and filtering and painting in abs or anything, but you do change the lighting, contrast, stuff like that. The photographers do that. I know. But the thing is, right, it's like even you just got to understand that. we always say this, again, what have we learned from 600 episodes? If you are comparing your real life to someone else's highlight reel, you will always be losing that game. And Kevin and I are very blessed at this point to be able to interview people and then talk behind the scenes with them and realize, like, okay, these are just human beings. They're just human beings, and they have challenges too. Just remember, a lot of that is protectors. And that's why this quote, very last thing I'll say on this one, move to number 4. Everyone has insecurities, especially those you don't think they do. Because remember, that protector might be so big. Maybe that's why they're posting all the best photos. I laugh and I joke, like, you could look at my Instagram right now. I probably have like 20 likes on some of my stuff. Like, I remember one of my buddies, he literally said, you know how I knew you'd be successful? He said, I've never seen someone post for that many years with almost no views and no likes. That's how I knew you'd never stop, because you're not doing it for that. And I really appreciated that. That's a compliment I'll remember forever, because I'm not. It doesn't. Obviously, it matters that people engage and that we can help people, but at the end of the day, I'm not doing it for external validation. I'm doing it because I want to help people, genuinely. And anyone who knows me well knows that, because I've posted things for 10 likes.
Oh, yeah.
30,000 followers, only 20 views. It's like, what's going on there? It's like, well, I used to do fitness, and I grew my following in fitness, and now we're doing personal development, and I don't get as much engagement. But I'm not ashamed of that. I'm not trying to hide it from everybody. Right? And so we've all been guilty of this, and we got to take down those protectors if we want to grow.
Self-improvement isn't quite as sexy as Jeff on the beach.
Well, unfortunately.
You know what I mean? Also, real quick.
That's a compliment. I don't know.
Real quick with the insecurities. On, I don't know, 3 meetups, we literally did a meetup on insecurities.
Yes.
I talked about porn on that, and I actually had somebody reach out to me to talk about porn. So also understand your insecurities are not your own. There's many, many people out there who deal with the same exact thing that you're dealing with.
They just don't talk about it necessarily. All right, number 4. Be careful who you take advice from. Ooh, this one's important. Okay, so if you are writing, I think it's really important to write this down. I just taught this to the NLCC group, Next Level Certified Coaches. So there's 4 levels of mastery in any endeavor. The first one is called unconscious incompetence. In other words, I don't know that I'm not good at this. So I'm going to use basketball as an analogy, okay? So let's say you've never played basketball before, and it's like, hey, you want to shoot some hoops? It's like, nah, I don't really play basketball. I don't really know how. But you've watched it, and you're like, oh, it looks kind of easy. Then you get on the court, and you realize, oh, this is like really hard. I don't even know how to dribble, right? This is tough. Okay, that you go from the first layer of unconscious incompetence, in other words, you don't know you're bad, to, oh my God, I am hyper-consciously aware that I'm bad. Next level, conscious incompetence. Now I know I'm not good. People do one of 2 things when they find this out. This is the mirror moment, okay? You think you're a great speaker till you give a speech, and then you go, oh, God, I suck. Okay, we've all been there at times. What do? Do you go back to pretending you don't like to speak or you don't like basketball? Or do you go get a mentor? Go get a coach, go get a guide. Okay? Third level of mastery, conscious competence. This is what happens. You go get a guide and then you practice. So you start off, I don't know that I'm bad at basketball. Ooh, try playing. Now I know I'm bad. Unconscious incompetence. Or conscious incompetence. Next level, conscious competence. Now I know I'm good. I'm getting good. I'm practicing. 62 weeks in, we're getting decent at this. Awesome. Eventually, 5 years from now, you reach the 4th level of mastery, unconscious competence. Eventually, we will get so good at this, we won't even know we're good at this. We have some mentors that are so good at business, they've completely forgotten what it's like to not be good at business. My girlfriend's so good at relationships, she studied it for so long that, like, I remember her telling me, like, self-belief and self-worth aren't the same thing, Alan. I remember thinking to myself, like, and I was like, I didn't really ever think of that before. And she's like, wait, really? She was thinking about that years ago, probably a decade ago. That's because she's unconsciously competent. So the point of this, be careful who you take advice from. If Kevin and I are going to give you advice as podcasters, we need to realize we're 640 episodes in. Of course, what we're doing seems so easy to us, whereas this might be really, really challenging for you. So if we gave you advice of Nike, just do it, it's like, that doesn't help me. I'm scared. Instead, it's like, okay, start on your phone and don't post the video. Just watch it back. That's it. Okay, now once you're comfortable with that for a few weeks, okay, now post it on Instagram. Okay, you're comfortable with that for a few weeks? Okay, let's go get a speech. Okay, comfortable with that a few weeks? Again, this all ties together. Everybody's comfort zone is different. Self-belief, self-worth are everything. Everyone's different. Everyone has insecurities, especially those you don't think do. And then be careful who you take advice from. Don't take advice from the people who got rid of all their insecurities and forget that they're giving you advice based on no insecurity. Right? This is challenging for us, but kind of not that challenging. And I don't mean that to be cocky. I mean that because we've done it 62 times in a row, and that's not including the 640 episodes and the other 100 speeches we've given. I've given. I think Kevin's a little lower than that.
Don't worry about it.
Doesn't matter. The point is when you have a mentor, just realize that their walking pace is your all-out sprint. And don't let that demoralize you. Just remember, their advice needs to be taken very carefully. And that's really important.
So Alan is talking about the fact that some people forget what it's like to either start something or grow something or get to the next level. Understand this. A lot of the advice that you get, especially early on, is going to be people who never learned how to do those things. So we've talked about this before. I don't remember when this was. And again, I have nothing but love for this person, but I believe at some point somebody said Alan and I shouldn't do a podcast together. I think they said it didn't make sense. This might have been like 50 episodes in or 60. And here we are 600 episodes later. We believed that was the right play, and here we are, and now we're getting paid to speak together, and we've done coaching together, and we're building a business and a brand together. So I'm grateful for that. But understand that early on, a lot of the advice you get is going to be riddled with insecurities.
Right.
The people who tell you can't succeed don't believe that they can. So how could you? Again, people don't want to see you lose. They just don't want to see you leave. So the advice they give a lot of times is scarce. Where if you come ask Alan and I for advice, I want to make it abundant. Like, I want you to outgrow us. I want you to have more listens and more clients and more impact and more profitability and more mastery than us. That's what I want for you. But if you asked me 5 years ago, I probably would have a lot of limiting beliefs about what you could accomplish. Remember, I was the guy who didn't want his girlfriend to go to California to chase her dreams because I didn't think she'd succeed, and she's doing it right now, right? So I am actually quite literally guilty of this in the past, and that's why I know it so well. But understand, early on, most people do not have any idea of what it will take for you to succeed. They might not have any more idea than you. So they're just going to start throwing stuff at the wall, and the advice that you get won't always be great. So you have to really, really pick and choose. And then part two, just circling back to social media, watch out who you take advice from on social media. There's a lot of people. So Alan and I have this quote that we say, we don't want to use this, but this is what works in the industry. It's not about what you know. It's about what you can show. So if I had a Ferrari and you guys saw that in a video, you would automatically assume Alan and I are more successful than we are. Because it's not about what I know, it's about what I can show. So understand that anytime you're taking advice from somebody on Instagram or whatever platform you're on, just really try to get an understanding of who they are and what their character is. They might just be telling you something to sell a program. I've seen it happen many times, unfortunately.
We've seen many people buy their followers.
Yes.
It's like a thing, right? You can't go off of an Instagram check mark and assume they know what they're talking about. You just can't.
I had somebody DM me, literally, somebody DM'd me and said, hey, I saw you on one of my friend's podcasts. Here's a 15-minute Calendly invite. Like, let's get on a call. And I looked, and I don't know, it was something like 210,000 followers. I was like, interesting, what's this? I go back 4 months, and there's 12 likes. And now it's 200,000 likes. Like, something is astray here.
Yeah, you got to be careful. Okay, so far you've got everybody's comfort zone is different. Self-belief and self-worth are everything. Everyone has insecurities, especially those you don't think do. And then be careful whose advice you take. And imagine if we had taken that advice of not partnering up. Dude, how different would everything be?
Everything would be very different.
Every time Kevin and I ever get off the phone with a mentor, we always pitch and catch with what advice we want to cherry pick. It's very important that you don't just take blanket advice from anybody. I'm telling you, that's like so critical. Number 5, there is a massive difference between knowing and doing. This one, we've only got 4 minutes on the clock, but this one's powerful. If information was the problem, we'd all be one Google search away from all the wealth we'd ever want and being in the best shape of our lives. Sleep, hydration, nutrition, training, and mobility. It's that simple. Simple to be in shape. All the stuff I studied, all the time I spent as a model and a fitness competitor, blah, blah, blah. Sleep, hydration, nutrition, training, and mobility. And I talk about that why? Because it's actually just the fundamentals. How much sleep are you getting? How much are you hydrating? How well are you eating? How many calories, micros and macros? Are you training every day? If you are, what are you doing? Weights, cardio, blah, blah, blah. And then mobility. It's that simple. Simple, but not easy. Human beings are the most inconsistent creatures on the planet. Okay, let's say hypothetically I were to say I want to exercise every day for the rest of my life for 20 minutes. In theory, so easily doable. We all have 20 minutes a day. Go for a walk. Go for a stroll. Do some sit-ups. Do some push-ups. 20 minutes a day. Every day for the rest of my life. Super easy to say that. Kevin and I are podcasters. We're speakers. We're communicators. We're always talking. But it's the messenger more than the message. It's who we are behind the scenes. We can talk all day about this stuff. If we don't live it, breathe it every day, forever, it's just empty words. Okay? The example I have for this is back in college. I was electrical and computer engineering, and we were doing all kinds of really intense theory. Fourier transforms, Laplace transforms, signal analysis, really tough classes, really, really challenging. And what's interesting is the person who was helping me and all my friends learn these principles and apply them was the one who went to a trade school and actually studied electronics with his hands. He was in a TV and radio repair shop, and he was at a trade school. So if you don't know, if you've never been to a trade school is half academics, which is theory, and half like practical. HVAC, plumbing, all the trades, trade school. He was the one teaching us. What's fascinating is that we ended up doing better on most of the tests. I think we were better test takers, but he knew more than we did in a real-world application. So all this theory, I got straight A's in all the calculuses without going to class. So I know all the theory, but that doesn't mean that I'm applying it every single day. There's a big difference between knowing and doing. We all know what it takes to be in shape. Exercise more, eat less. Hydrate more, sleep more. Stay mobile, stay pliable. We all know that, right? And that's not new. That's not new for anybody. Why aren't we more in shape? It's because we're not doing it. Behavior change is what matters. Conduct is what matters. Not going to lie, back in the day, before Google, before the internet, I'm not going to lie, sometimes you didn't know enough. We didn't know enough to succeed. I get that. Now we have the information. We're just not using it enough. As a matter of fact, information overload has actually become the problem because we all get confused on what to do when it really is the tried and true fundamentals. We're 640 episodes in. We talk about the same fundamentals. It's not the exact same. We have different nuances and we communicate it in a different way. But overall, it's the same fundamental principles. This universe is governed by fundamental principles that do not change, and you can apply them for the better or for the worse, but you have to actually apply them. That's the key.
It's hard to come up with titles and content.
I know.
640 episodes. So the last
Growing Pains Part 7.
Growing Pains Part 7. There'll always be those. The last thing connects to that, but it's kind of an overview. 600 and whatever episodes, however many it is, all these things, the reps matter almost more than anything. If you really want to accomplish something, if you look up to somebody who has accomplished something, they probably did more reps than anybody else. They've probably been doing it for longer than anybody else. They probably have failed more than anybody else, right? Alan and I have clients at Next Level Podcast Solutions, and it's beautiful because I get to see behind the scenes of their first episode, of their first YouTube. Like, okay, how good are they actually? And I will tell you this, everybody at the beginning struggles a little bit. The first time is a struggle. When the microphone goes on and the video turns on, people tend to struggle. But I will tell you, 14 to 18 episodes in, things start to get a little smoother. The interviews start to go a little bit better. The branding and the social media starts to look a little bit better. For me, it was like 150 episodes. It took a long time. But the reps matter more than anything. If you guys were here for us on episode number 2, you wouldn't have stayed. You wouldn't still be listening. You just wouldn't. Right? You wouldn't. But we had to do the first 637 episodes before we could get to 638, which we just recorded today. So the reps matter more than anything. Keep doing it because progress over perfection.
Absolute fire.